so much for joining me. How are you today?
Maria, I'm good. My voice is a little bit croaky, as you may have heard, so it's good that we are working from home. I don't think I've got the lurgy, but I've certainly got something a bit wintry, a bit man flu-ish.
Yeah, it's very deep. It's very deep voice today. And I have to say to you, Peter, welcome back to the speaker circuit, as I love to call it, because I loved working with you for years and years and years. And then you went off and got a job and you couldn't speak for me anymore because you ended up working with John Lewis, didn't you, at a very senior level? 8 years you were off my speaker circuit. How's it to be back?
Well, the feeling is mutual, Maria. I mean, you're one of your speaker royalty, aren't you, in my mind? But it feels both exhilarating and scary in equal measures because it's really exciting. I mean, I love the adrenaline of performance, whichever channel you're performing on. But it's also scary because retail moves like on the turn of a coin, and you think, my God, 8 years, I must be totally redundant and irrelevant. But then you dig deep into yourself, and my work's always been around human needs and what drives people. And you realize that those needs are actually not, in fact, don't move as quickly as markets or technology. And all the stuff that drives us as human beings actually remains fairly constant.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And it's so good that you're not redundant or irrelevant. And no one is ever redundant or irrelevant when they're actually out in the field doing what they know and, doing what they're expert in. But would you say that now that you are back and speaking to clients, has anything changed? You said obviously the human part hasn't changed, but has anything changed in terms of sort of understanding of customer experience and that whole area of your expertise?
I mean, everything's changed and nothing's changed both at the same time, which is often the way with these things. As customers, we are all bathing in these invaluable epiphanies about how we want to live our lives today. And we're probably still in that sort of motion, really. Clearly, there's been a massive pivot into shopping digitally, which has been accelerated by the pandemic and so on. But during this period, lifelong loyalties to brands have been tested to the limits. The role of the physical shop remains under scrutiny. It's been under scrutiny, being honest, for the last 15 years, but it is now seriously under scrutiny. And we are, in equal measures, deeply dependent and deeply distrustful of digital technologies. There's a lot going on in terms of the real-time space that brands are grappling with, let alone just making money when everything is just much, much more difficult and much, much more expensive.
Wow. Yeah. So many good points there. The whole loyalty thing, our loyalty has been tested. Absolutely. Completely agree with you. And that physical shop. I mean, I remember back when you were working with Mary Portas, the Mary Queen of Shops, and the whole, looking at the future of the high street and was the high street. I mean, I imagine the high street has got still some change to go through. But that point you make that we're dependent on digital and distrustful of digital, I hadn't thought about it like that. But you're so right. That's a big problem, isn't it, for organizations, for commerce?
It is. It is. I mean, I think what fascinates me about customers is that when brands try and segment customers, they put us into little boxes and they say, okay, Maria's this kind of customer and she does that and she likes shopping this, she's got this kind of family, she lives here and so on. The truth is, as customers, we flit about 17 times a day between being this kind of customer and this kind of, depending on what we're buying, whether it's driven by value, by convenience, by consistency, by experience, how we're feeling, what it is, and so on. So we move around a lot. And there's this enormous polarization in customers between I want something that's seamless and transactional and subscription based and super easy, to a really deep emotional partnership with a brand. And I might want different things from those different brands at different times of the day. So, I mean, all that to say, it is really complicated. But if your start point is people and their needs, as opposed to what you're selling, because I've always said, Maria, what you're selling isn't necessarily what people are buying, then at least you're in the game.
Okay, so it's the people we've got to focus on. And by the way, you described me exactly. I flit through 17 personalities every hour. So, and I am different with different things and different products that I'm buying. I am also incredibly influenced, I have to say, by that relationship. I mean, I spent a fortune last week. I'm not going to share what I bought because I was treated so incredibly well. I spent more than twice what I intended to spend. So that customer service thing is really important, isn't that customer experience part?
It is. It's when I talk about service, there's a little bit of me that suddenly feels a bit sort of, oh God, is that just a really old-fashioned term? A bit like shop, you know? There are these words that we've sort of grown up with, but fundamentally, whether you're 8 or you're 80, it is my belief that customer service is an eternal and essential differentiator in business. And we were all, you, me, Maria, all of us, were very tolerant at the beginning of the pandemic around, please bear with us. We're really sorry. In these difficult times, we're struggling to sort of, and we were very patient for 12 months. We're fine to be served really badly by a lot of businesses. But to be honest with you, that isn't good enough, I know. I mean, customer complaints are at their highest level since 2009. And there is now a real sense of division between those companies who are just transacting with me and those companies that understand the importance of true service. And that the likelihood is the customer, the experience that you had, Maria, was probably something really small. The difference between good and bad is often just a tiny little turn of the crank. But it was a little thing that probably marked you and made you feel valued, and you were listened to, and there was empathy, and you were trusted, and whatever that thing was, it probably wasn't a lot.
I was treated like I was the only person in the building. That's what it was. I was treated like I was the only person, and I was given champagne. So that's now shown you exactly how much I've spent for giving champagne.
So maybe that's the key to your heart is clearly champagne.
The key to me is give me champagne. I'm shocked that you say that complaints are up higher than they've been since 2009. I am totally shocked by that.
Yeah, I think
what are we doing wrong? What's going wrong?
I think I think it's, I don't know. I don't know if that's been your experience, but right at the, I think it's actually been, there's a whole backstory of this, is that customer service was almost reduced to a sort of a touch point in a CX methodology. So it became quite sort of commoditized, as opposed to service fundamentally comes down to people and feelings and really understanding that dynamic, whether it's digital or in a real shop. And I think it's been a whole compounding of the pandemic, plus, interminable waiting times, exasperating automated messages, chatbots that are just totally inefficient and just don't work at all and just send you in circles, inability to speak to a real person. Then when you do, they're not empowered to actually fix anything, being stuck in the cycle of what I call start again, which is you're starting again and then you're starting again. And all of this stuff compounds, particularly in certain sectors. I mean, the poor old GPs have gotten stuck in a lot of financial institutions. There are various parts of the economy that have just really dropped the ball. And the good old Daily Mail, actually, they've just brought back I think they're called their wooden spoon awards, they're called. And for a few months, for a few years, they've not been progressing this, but they're basically saying we're getting so many complaints from customers saying, I just don't feel like the only person in the room. I don't feel anything like that. I don't feel I'm even here in the room. There is a sense of we need to get on top of this. So I get quite hot under the collar about service.
You've described some of my worst experiences, and you also highlighted the particular industries that are getting it wrong. So basically, if you're in that industry, in that sector, and you do a better job, you're going to clean up, aren't you?
I think so.
So why are they not doing this? Why are they not changing?
I think it's a number of things. I think in the defense of many of these sectors, the last 2 years have been so overwhelmingly difficult, for reasons of the pandemic, of resourcing, of cost, of channel switch, and political reasons. There's a hell of a lot going on that makes life hard. Very often, Maria, which is surprising, you'll find that in businesses, the customer is owned by everybody, which often means the customer isn't owned by anybody. So you've got the retail teams who own the customer, and the customer marketing teams who own the customer, and the IT. So you get a load of people that feel like they own the customer, but very often, there isn't a single team that really can make the shots and is the voice of the customer in the business, which means the customer voice often isn't heard. And my least favorite term is that we're a customer-centric business, because in reality, very few businesses actually are, despite most wanting to be.
I love what you said there, that if the customer is owned by everybody, the customer is owned by nobody. That makes absolute sense to me. That's a bit of an aha moment for me, because I'm thinking, I get that. That's so important. So who should own that customer relationship?
I think the people that should own the customer relationship are the people that are passionate about customers. And they can sit in the on the reception, if you like. But if you're passionate about customers and genuinely care, I used to respond in John Lewis to so many letters. And I used to get in trouble because there was a team that were brilliant actually at responding to all of this. But I was just like, I've got so personally, not sort of affronted and worried about people thinking, my God, their sofa hasn't arrived and they're stuck without their dining table for Christmas, and I would just leap on it and just throw all my empathy and love into these customers, because genuinely, I don't know what it says about my psychology, but I genuinely cared. So wherever they sit in the organization, and they should be with customers. That's the one real red line for me. So just sitting in an office and never being with customers. The delightful thing about when we move through the pandemic, about this pivot in how we work, Maria, should mean that working flexibly should mean I'm working at home, I'm working in the office, and I'm working with customers, rather than I'm just now working at home the whole time. And I think if that doesn't happen in our industry, it will be a real tragedy.
Okay, that's interesting. So one of the things that you've said it already, you're passionate about humans, about people, and we've focused on the customer, but you relate that whole customer experience to also the employee experience. Can you explain that to me, please, how those two interlink?
I do. You'll have heard the term CX, which is the sort of modern definition of customer experience. We used to call it customer service, but customer experience. The flip of the coin is EX, which is employee experience. And it's not surprising, because these guys are the face of the business, whether it's a service business or a shop or whatever kind of business it is. For many customers like you, Maria, they are the business. So you expect that these frontline staff have been imbued with the very essence of this brand. You must have spent years training them. The truth is, of course, that's not necessarily the case. And there's a startling statistic, is that when you're doing I don't know about you, Maria, because you're obviously a champagne shopper, but when the average shopper is going shopping, 65% of the transaction has happened before you enter the shop. So you've already done your research and your peer-to-peer research, and you've trawled net for information, you've picked up a sample, you've done some Google reviews, whatever it is. You've really done all that work before. So for me as an employee to be at your level, when you enter my premises, I've got to be at least at that 65%. But what you want from me, your expectation of me, is that I can do more than that. Otherwise, you're going to go back onto Google. So the expectation, and we live in an expectation economy of you as a shopper, of me as a frontline employee, is enormous. And the other reason I'm passionate about it is that if you make me, as a frontline worker, as a retail employee, a true ambassador, and make me complicit in business outcomes, so I truly feel I've had my say and I've been listened to in the building of customer propositions, whatever they are, the chances are I'm going to care about it a little bit more. And that doesn't happen enough at the moment either.
That makes perfect sense to me. In the introduction, we said that you're a bit of a straight talker. So when you go to speak to organizations and companies, do you tell them as it is? Do you actually do a bit of secret shopping yourself and give them feedback?
I do. You've got to be very careful with that, because they all know 20 times more than you about their own business. And I think they start with, well, this bloke's just been paid to do 45 minutes and he's going to trawl out the sort of, the sort of standard speech. And largely, I think they can tell, because there's often a culture and there's a sector speciality and there's a language in all of these businesses and all these industry sectors that you've got to be up to speed with a little bit. So I get a bit obsessive about research and relevance, that word again, so that I do sound vaguely as if I understand. And I'd like to feel as if in that moment I work for this organization just as much as you do. And I think once I've got the confidence in that, and you can get the noddies going, and people are going, yeah, he's not just turning out the random old speech that he did at whichever company last week, then that gives you the authority to then be able to sort of dig deep and go, you know what, I've noticed this, and there are certain sectors that are more responsive to that, I think, and some that are less. But I think it's when you have a bit of fun, isn't it? When you can poke around, and largely people go, he's right. I've said that. I've said that 20 times. No one listens to me. How come somebody comes in and, from the external? But largely, you just waken the inner giants within the audience.
Is that what people bring you in to do then? Do clients bring you in to awaken that, or do they bring you in to give a different perspective? What can they expect in 45 minutes, I suppose, is what I'm really asking you, because it's a short time.
I think because a bit of fun, you've just got to have fun. We're not putting men on the moon, and we're not saving lives, we're selling stuff. So a bit of experience, because I've done this job from all angles. Most people have done it from one or two, but I've written, I've been the sort of the journalistic side of customer. I've been a consultant for 10 years, and I've been in the shoes of the customer director, where I've been placating and pleasing and delighting and blah, blah, blah customers all that time. So I think they get the sort of legitimacy of somebody who's done it from all shoes. And I try to do it from the perspective let's just not make this about a talk. Let's make this far more immersive and enduring a relationship. So let me be the voice of the customer in your room, or let me sit with your leadership team and let me poke around what you're doing. So I prefer a partnership and whatever that means. And then hopefully just a couple of well-honed home truths based on hours of research, just trying to make myself feel convincing.
Love it. I love that. I love that you said partnership, because of course you've just come out from the John Lewis partnership, so that's really appropriate. And I'd love to actually, from that role where you were in the hot seat, as so to speak, facing the customer, what were the lessons you learned from there that are different from the other roles that you've had? What does John Lewis teach you?
Well, I am a deeply curious / nosy person, so I'm always learning, and I'll still be sort of half croaking, and I'll still be trying to learn something new. I think that's within me. So wherever I go, you always pick up something, even if it's bad stuff. I was in the luxury industry for quite a long time, and there's a lot of lovely stuff in luxury. There's also quite a lot of bad stuff in the luxury industry, and bad behaviors and so on. And I think the John Lewis partnership it's a funny old business. There's a lot of people who've been there for a very long time, and I think I just brought some fresh thinking in there. And they're wonderful brands, John Lewis and Waitrose. But the model is what makes it unique. It is a partnership. It's employee owned. People have a voice. That brings a lot of complexity and difficulty if you're moving through as a democracy, an industrial democracy, then that brings complications. But the passion and love and the deep-seated understanding of customers that was passed almost by osmosis throughout the business is why you could almost feel good service in John Lewis. It was because it was passed down almost through generations of store assistants and that knowledge. So I think just deep respect really for and passion to play my part into two national icons.
Love it. Love it. Really good. Really good. I think you've probably answered this already, but I'll put you on the spot a bit further. But what makes you different as a speaker? I mean, you've said that you'll do the research and that it's relevant. You'll say that you make it enjoyable and you want it to be a partnership. I suppose those are the things that make you different from other speakers in this place, because it is quite a crowded space, really, isn't it? It
is. It's I I don't know. I think the fact that I've done the job in all aspects does give me a little point of difference, because whichever way they're coming from, oh, you're just a consultant, or you're not a consultant. I've kind of got an answer for it. So when I'm in the hot seat, and that's the best bit, is the hot seat in all these things. It's the adrenaline and the rush of, my God, what they're going to ask me. So I think that just gives me a point of difference. I mean, where I started in public speaking was really quite random, Maria. I was working for L'Oreal, and we ran these things called the Colour Trophy, which were hairdressing competitions. And we had hairdressers had 45 minutes to do a look. So the hair, the clothes, the makeup on the floor in some pretty rubbish regional hotel. And I started comparing them and going around the country. So you do like 2 a night. I just got the thrill. It was a bit like starting in Buckland, I don't know, but I got the thrill of performance and understanding audiences and just absolutely loved it. And I ended up at the Grosvenor House with a celebrity of the day, and I was kind of learning from them. So it was a bit of a circuitous route. And then, as you know, Mary and I were business partners for 10 years, and I sat next to her. And when she went on telly, the calls came into me, and let's just say that I offered up my services as well. Probably they couldn't afford her, actually. It was a bit of a circuitous route round, but I think, and pretty unconventional. But all of that really weird experience possibly means I've got something a little bit different to offer.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. I used to love coming and visiting you and Mary Portas in your offices, fabulous offices. And you did literally sit side by side, which was so lovely. I remember that well. So tell me, Peter, here's a really big question for you. What's the future for customer service and customer experience?
Well, I think, as I've said, an enormous amount has changed and nothing has changed. There are a number of quite sort of pivotal notions that are washing around at the moment that we've got to be aware of. The first is that we have survived and to some extent thrived with less in recent times, and there's been a joy in less. This whole Christmas is a Christmas of shopping and buying and giving less. There's no doubt about it, and that's just not just an economic thing. So I think that's the impact on sustainability and circular economy, all that kind of stuff is all to play for, and moving away from ESG and CSR reports and really putting that into the heart of business and how people behave. There is general agreement that standing for something more than the stuff you sell is going to be really important. That's generally called purpose. Purpose has become the buzzword in the last sort of 18 months, 2 years. But brands working out what that is incredible. They're finding that incredibly difficult. So what is our actual purpose? And everyone still just plays Simon Sinek sort of 200 times. Still, I don't know how long that video's been going, but people are still using that 20 years later. And as I said, all of these channels, the role of these channels in our lives, the redefinition of the physical space, the redefinition of the high street is incredibly exciting. I'm still as passionate about the high street because when it works, my God, it works. It really is an absolute magnet for humans as social creatures. Overall, it's just avoiding you just don't get stuck in the middle of the road and try and do all of these things at once, because you will get run over.
Okay, that's really good advice. Don't get stuck in the middle of the road because you'll get run over. That's really good. I'm going to quote you on that. I like that. That applies for other things too, doesn't it? It works. Peter, it's been an absolute pleasure. I hope you've enjoyed it. I've made you work hard, haven't I?
You've put me through my paces, but I wouldn't have expected anything less, Maria.
Fantastic. And I want to thank everybody for listening to The Speaker Show. If you have enjoyed this episode, please do not hesitate to rate it on Apple Podcasts. And you can keep up with future episodes at the Speakers Associates website, which is speakersassociates.com, or your favorite podcast app. And of course, if you want to invite Peter Cross to speak at your next conference or event, get in touch with Speakers Associates in plenty of time so that you won't be disappointed. I will see you all next week. Thank you very much for listening. Bye-bye.